The dining room of Lumiere shimmered under the glow of crystal chandeliers, their light fracturing into prisms that danced across white linen tablecloths. Nestled in the heart of Manhattan's Upper East Side, the restaurant was a sanctuary for New York's elite, where a single entree cost more than most people's weekly grocery bills. At table 12, tucked in a shadowed corner, Ethan Caldwell sat alone, his sharp green eyes scanning the room with a quiet intensity. At 35, the white American tech billionaire was a fixture on Forbes covers, his name synonymous with Sinclair Innovations, a company valued at $2.5 billion. His tailored navy suit, crisp against his lean frame, spoke of wealth. But the furrow in his brow hinted at something more profound, a solitude that no amount of money could dispel. Tonight was his birthday, and the absence of companions felt like a weight in his chest. Across the room, Aisha Thompson wove between tables, her black uniform pristine, despite the 8-hour shift that had her feet aching. At 28, the black American waitress had mastered the art of the warm smile, a mask that concealed her exhaustion. Her chestnut curls were pulled into a neat bun, a few strands escaping to frame her heart-shaped face. Aisha's life was a delicate balancing act. Late-night shifts at Lumiere, early mornings managing her mother's lupus treatments, and the ever-looming threat of her Brooklyn rent creeping higher each month. She carried a tray of sparkling wine flutes with steady hands, her dark eyes flicking toward table 12. She recognized Ethan Caldwell instantly. His chiseled features and perfectly styled ash-blonde hair were unmistakable from magazine spreads. "What's a guy like that doing alone?" she murmured to herself, her voice barely audible over the clink of cutlery. Malik, her co-worker and longtime friend, sidled beside her at the wine station, his apron stained with a faint smear of béarnaise sauce. "Yo, Aisha, check out table 12, he whispered, nudging her with his elbow. "That's Ethan Caldwell, the tech dude. Forbes says he's got more money than God. What's he doing eating solo on a Friday night?" Aisha shrugged, pouring a glass of Chardonnay with practiced precision. "Rich people's problems, Malik. Not my circus, not my monkeys." She adjusted her name tag, the silver pin glinting under the restaurant's soft lighting. Her focus was on surviving the shift, not decoding the whims of billionaires. Still, as she glided past Ethan's table to deliver the wine, she caught his gaze, a fleeting moment that sent a shiver down her spine. His eyes weren't dismissive like those of Lumiere's usual patrons, who barely glanced at her face, their attention fixed on stock portfolios or socialite gossip. Ethan's stare was direct, searching, as if he saw her, not just the waitress serving his meal. Ethan, meanwhile, sipped his bourbon, the amber liquid warming his throat, but doing little to ease the ache in his chest. Birthdays had always been quiet affairs after his parents' death in a plane crash during his sophomore year at MIT. The memory of their laughter, once a comfort, now felt like a ghost haunting his penthouse. He'd planned a grand party tonight, a rooftop club rented out, 200 invites sent to business associates, investors, and so-called friends. But staring at the guest list this morning, he'd canceled it all. The realization had hit him like a cold wave. Those people didn't care about him. They wanted his influence, his investments, his name. He craved something real, something untainted by his wealth. But authenticity was a rare currency in his world. Oblivious to Ethan's inner turmoil, Aisha navigated the dining room efficiently, her smile unwavering despite the floor manager, Carla, barking orders through her earpiece. "Aisha, table 8 needs their check, and table 12's entree is up. Move it!" Carla's voice was sharp, a reminder of Aisha's replaceability in Lumiere's polished machine. Aisha nodded, tucking a stray curl behind her ear, and headed to the kitchen. As she passed table 12 again, She noticed Ethan's untouched plate of seared scallops, his fork resting idle. Odd, she thought. Most customers here devoured their meals like trophies. She made a mental note to check on him, though she doubted he'd notice her beyond the service transaction. In the kitchen, the chaos of clanging pots and shouted orders enveloped her. Aisha plated Ethan's dessert, a lavender panna cotta with edible gold leaf, and carried it to his table. "Here you are, sir," she said, her tone professional yet warm, placing the dish before him. "Can I get you anything else?" Ethan looked up, his gaze locking onto hers. For a moment, the noise of Lumiere faded, the chatter, the clink of glasses, the distant jazz from the speakers. "You're Aisha, right?" he asked, glancing at her name tag. His voice was low, steady, with a hint of a Midwestern drawl that surprised her. Most customers didn't bother with her name. "Yes, sir," she replied, caught off guard. "Is everything all right with your meal?" "It's perfect," he said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Just stay a moment if you can." Aisha hesitated, glancing toward the kitchen where Carla's watchful eyes loomed. "I'm not supposed to linger, sir," she said, her tone polite but firm. "But if you need something, I'm happy to help." Ethan nodded, his expression unreadable. "Understood. Maybe later then." He returned to his bourbon, and Aisha moved on, her mind racing. Why had he asked her to stay? Was he one of those entitled types, expecting more than her job required? She shook off the thought, focusing on her following table. But Ethan's quiet presence lingered like a melody she couldn't unhear. As the night wore on, Aisha's feet throbbed, and her smile strained. She counted her tips in the break room, the crumpled bills barely enough to cover her mother's next prescription. Malik leaned against the lockers, scrolling through his phone. "You see that Caldwell guy? Still there, nursing his drink like it's his last friend. Bet he's got drama we can't even imagine." "Let him have it," Aisha said, stuffing the cash into her purse. "I've got enough of my own." She thought of her mother, Lorraine, whose laughter once filled their Brooklyn apartment, but now came in fragile bursts between hospital visits. Aisha's dream of opening a community literacy center where kids could discover books and dream big felt like a distant star, out of reach amid the grind of survival. As she prepared to leave, Carla approached, her expression a mix of annoyance and curiosity. "Table 12 wants to speak with you, Aisha. Don't know what you did, but don't keep him waiting." Aisha's stomach twisted. Had she messed up his order? She smoothed her uniform and returned to the dining room, where Ethan sat, his bourbon glass now empty, his posture tense yet expectant. "Mr. Caldwell?" she said, standing at a respectful distance. "You wanted to see me?" He looked up, and Aisha saw something raw in his eyes for the first time. Loneliness, unmistakable and sharp. "Please, sit," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "I promise it's not about the food." Aisha's heart thudded. This was no ordinary request, and in Lumiere's gilded world, it felt like the prelude to something that could change everything. Aisha Thompson stood frozen at Ethan Caldwell's table in Lumiere's dimly lit dining room, the billionaire's request to sit echoing in her ears. The clatter of plates and murmured conversations faded as she weighed his words. His green eyes, shadowed with a quiet desperation, held hers, and for a moment, she felt less like a waitress and more like a person seen. But caution tightened her chest. Men with money often expected more than they admitted, and she dodged enough entitled customers to know better. "I'm not allowed to sit with guests, Mr. Caldwell," Aisha said, her voice steady despite the pulse hammering in her throat. She glanced toward the kitchen, where Carla, the floor manager, loomed like a hawk. Ethan leaned forward, his bourbon glass cradled in his hands. "I've cleared it with your manager. Please, just a minute. His tone was calm, authoritative, but not demanding, a distinction that unsettled her. Reluctantly, she slid into the chair across from him, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Is there a problem with the service?" she asked, keeping her tone professional. Her mind raced, replaying every interaction. Had she spilled a drop of wine? Forgotten a side dish? His meal had seemed untouched, but Lumiere's patrons were fickle. He shook his head, a faint smile softening his sharp features. The service was flawless. "You're good at what you do, Aisha. Attentive, but not intrusive." He paused, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. "Today's my birthday." Aisha blinked, caught off guard. "Happy birthday, Mr. Caldwell," she said, her smile automatic but genuine. "I hope you're enjoying it." "Ethan," he corrected, his voice low. He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Enjoying it? I'm 35, sitting alone in a restaurant, drinking bourbon like it's my only friend. Pathetic, isn't it?" The rawness in his words pierced her defenses. She'd expected arrogance, not this. "I'm sure you've got people who'd want to celebrate with you," she said diplomatically, though her mind flashed to Malik's earlier quip about Ethan's wealth. Surely a man like him had friends, family, and a girlfriend. "People who want something from me, sure," Ethan said, his gaze dropping to the table. "Investors, colleagues, hangers-on. My parents passed years ago, and friends. Let's say I've learned who they are." He looked up, his eyes locking onto hers. "Do you ever feel alone, even in a crowd?" Aisha's breath caught. She thought of her nights at Lumiere, smiling through exhaustion, or the quiet moments in her Brooklyn apartment. Bills stacked on the counter, her mother's voice masking pain. "Sometimes," she admitted, her voice softer than she intended. "It's hard when you're always performing." He nodded, as if her words confirmed something he'd long suspected. "I had a party planned tonight," he continued. "Rented a club, invited 200 people. This morning I canceled it. I didn't want to spend my birthday with people who only show up for my name or money." Aisha shifted in her seat, unsure where this was going. His openness was disarming, but she braced herself. "Why are you telling me this?" Ethan leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "I have a proposition, Aisha. I want your company tonight. Just dinner, just conversation. I'll pay you $2,000. No strings, no expectations. Just a few hours in a public place." Her stomach dropped. The number, $2,000, echoed in her mind, enough to cover her mother's medication for months. But the offer stung, a reminder of the power imbalance between them. She straightened, her eyes narrowing. "I'm not that kind of waitress, Mr. Caldwell." To her surprise, he laughed, a genuine sound that softened the tension in his shoulders. "I didn't mean it like that. I swear, I just—" He ran a hand through his ash-blonde hair, searching for words. "I don't want to be alone tonight, and I don't trust the people in my world to be real. You seem genuine, like you don't care who I am." Aisha's guard wavered. His loneliness mirrored her own, a quiet ache she rarely acknowledged. But the money made it feel transactional, cheap. "Why me?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Some women'd jump at dinner with you, paid or not." "Exactly," Ethan said, his smile wry. "They'd want my connections, my status, a photo for their socials. You haven't looked at me like I'm a prize to be won. It's refreshing." She studied him, searching for deceit. His eyes held no malice, only a plea for something she couldn't quite name. The $2,000 tempted her. Her mother's hospital bills loomed like a storm cloud. But accepting felt like crossing a line. Yet something in his voice, His unguarded confession made her pause. She thought of her mother, Lorraine, who'd raised her to trust her instincts. "Just dinner?" Aisha clarified, her tone firm. "In a public place, and I choose where." Ethan's face lit up, a boyish grin transforming his stoic demeanor. "Deal. Wherever you want. There's a diner a few blocks away. Ruby's. Nothing fancy, but the food's good." She stood, smoothing her uniform. "I need to change first. Give me 15 minutes. "Take your time," he said, his relief palpable. "I'll wait." In the break room, Aisha swapped her uniform for jeans and a burgundy sweater, her hands trembling as she unpinned her hair. Malik caught her at the lockers, his brow raised. "You're not seriously going somewhere with Mr. Billionaire, right?" "It's just dinner," Aisha said, avoiding his gaze. "He's paying, but it's not what you think." Malik snorted. "Girl, be careful. Men like that don't do just dinner without an agenda." "I can handle myself," she said, slinging her bag over her shoulder. But as she stepped into the cool September night, doubt gnawed at her. Ruby's Diner, with its neon sign and cracked vinyl booths, was her territory. A slice of Brooklyn comfort amid Manhattan's gloss. Ethan waited outside Lumiere, his suit jacket slung over his arm, looking oddly out of place, yet at ease. They walked the 3 blocks to Ruby's, the city's hum enveloping them, honking taxis, distant sirens, the chatter of passers-by. Inside, the diner smelled of coffee and fried onions, its jukebox playing a Marvin Gaye tune. Aisha chose a booth by the window, and Ethan slid in across from her, his long frame barely fitting. The waitress, a woman with a name tag reading Tina, took their orders. Burgers and fries for both, with Aisha insisting on iced tea over soda. "So," Ethan said, folding his hands on the table. "Tell me about you, Aisha Thompson." Not the waitress, the person. She hesitated, then decided on honesty. "I grew up in Bed-Stuy. Single mom, worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat. I got a degree in education and wanted to teach, but life had other plans. Now I'm here, serving overpriced scallops to pay my mom's medical bills." She met his gaze, daring him to pity her. "Your turn. What's the real Ethan Caldwell like, not the Forbes version?" He chuckled, but his eyes grew distant. "I grew up in Ohio, middle class. Dad was a mechanic, Mom a librarian. They died when I was 19 in a plane crash. I began coding to cope and built my first app in a dorm room. Sold it, started Sinclair Innovations. The rest is noise." He paused, his voice softening. "I miss them. They were the last people who saw me, not my bank account." Aisha's chest tightened. His grief echoed her fears of losing her mother. They ate in companionable silence, the burgers greasy and perfect. Conversation flowed, her love for Toni Morrison novels, his secret obsession with old sci-fi comics. They weren't a billionaire and a waitress for a moment, just 2 people sharing a meal. As Tina cleared their plates, Ethan pulled an envelope from his jacket. "As promised," he said, sliding it across the table. The weight of the $2,000 felt heavy in Aisha's hands, turning their evening into a transaction. "Thank you," he added, his voice sincere. "This was the best birthday I've had in years." "I had a good time too," Aisha admitted, slipping the envelope into her bag. She stood, and Ethan walked her to the subway, the night air crisp. As she descended the steps, she glanced back. Ethan stood under a streetlight, his figure solitary yet hopeful, watching her go. The train rattled her home to Brooklyn, but Aisha couldn't shake the feeling that tonight had shifted something inside her. A dangerous and alive spark that might burn brighter than she was ready for. The morning after her dinner with Ethan Caldwell, Aisha Thompson woke to the hum of Brooklyn outside her apartment window. Car horns, laughter from the bodega below, the distant pulse of a hip-hop beat. Sunlight filtered through her faded curtains, casting stripes across her twin bed. She lay still, the events of last night at Ruby's diner replaying like a song stuck in her head. Ethan's unguarded smile, his stories of loss, their shared laughter over greasy burgers. It felt like a dream, too vivid to be real. But the weight of the envelope on her nightstand anchored her to reality. $2,000. Enough to ease her mother's medical bills, yet it made her skin crawl, as if she'd sold a piece of herself. Aisha sat up, rubbing sleep from her eyes, and reached for the envelope. The crisp $100 bills fanned out in her hands, their edges sharp. She could pay for Lorraine's next round of lupus meds and cover the rent hike looming next month. But the money tainted the memory of their conversation, turning a moment of connection into a transaction. Had Ethan seen her as a person, or just a hired companion? She stuffed the bills under her mattress, next to a worn copy of Beloved, and dressed in a hurry. Jeans, a teal blouse, her sneakers scuffed from years of city walking. She needed to see her mother, to ground herself in something real. The subway ride to Queens was a blur of crowded cars and flickering lights. Aisha's phone buzzed with a text from Malik, her co-worker from Lumiere. "You good after your billionaire date? Spill the tea." She typed a quick reply, "Just dinner, nosy, I'm fine." But her fingers hesitated over the screen. How could she explain Ethan's proposition without it sounding wrong? The air smelled of lavender tea and liniment at Lorraine's modest apartment. Lorraine Thompson sat by the window, her knitting needles clicking softly, her face lined but warm. At 58, her vibrant spirit was dimmed by illness, but her eyes sparkled as Aisha walked in. "There's my girl," Lorraine said, setting aside her yarn. "You're early. Rough night at Lumiere?" Aisha kissed her mother's cheek, the familiar scent of cocoa butter soothing her. It was different. She unpacked groceries, collard greens, sweet potatoes, a pint of Lorraine's favorite mango sorbet, and hesitated. "I met someone last night. A customer." Lorraine's eyebrows rose, her knitting forgotten. "A man? Tell me more." "It's not like that," Aisha said quickly, chopping greens at the counter. "He's this big-shot tech guy, Ethan Caldwell. He was alone on his birthday and asked me to have dinner with him. Paid me $2,000 to talk." The words spilled out, and she braced for judgment. Lorraine's eyes widened, but her tone stayed gentle. $2,000? "Baby, that's a blessing, but it sounds complicated. What's he like?" Aisha paused, the knife still in her hand. "He's not what I expected. Lonely, like he's carrying something heavy. We went to Ruby's and talked about books and family. It felt real. But then he gave me the money, and now I don't know." She met her mother's gaze. "You think I was wrong to take it?" Lorraine considered, her fingers tracing the edge of her shawl. "You needed that money, Aisha. But men like him live in a different world. Be careful what you're signing up for." She smiled, softening the warning. "Did you like his company?" Aisha nodded, a reluctant smile tugging at her lips. "Yeah." He listened, really listened. It's been a while since anyone did that. She thought of their diner booth, the way Ethan's eyes lit up when she mentioned her dream of opening a community literacy center, a place where kids could find refuge in stories, like she had as a child. Back at Lumiere that evening, the dining room buzzed with its usual opulence. Aisha moved through her shift on autopilot, dodging Carla's sharp commands and pasting on her practiced smile. Her thoughts kept drifting to Ethan, to the envelope under her mattress. Malik cornered her at the bar during a lull, his grin teasing. "So, You and Mr. Moneybags. What's the vibe? He proposing yet? Aisha rolled her eyes, polishing a wineglass. It was one dinner, Malik. Let it go. Nah, you're glowing a little, he said, leaning closer. Just don't let him think he can buy you, eh? You're worth more than his bank account. His words stung, echoing her doubts. Before she could respond, Carla thrust a small package into her hands. Delivery for you, Thompson. Some guy in a suit dropped it off. Don't make this a habit. Aisha frowned, her heart skipping as she retreated to the break room. The box was simple, tied with a thin ribbon. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its cover embossed with a quill. A note slipped out, written in neat, slanting handwriting. For your stories. You mentioned wanting to build a literacy center. Keep dreaming. E. Aisha's breath caught. She'd only mentioned her dream in passing at Ruby's, a fleeting comment about kids and books. The journal wasn't flashy, no diamonds or gold, just thoughtful, like he'd seen a piece of her soul. She ran her fingers over the soft leather, her mind tangled with emotions. Why did he care? Was this a thank you or something more? Malik's warning rang in her ears, but so did Lorraine's gentle nudge to trust her instincts. She tucked the journal into her bag and returned to her tables, her smile less forced now. In a quiet moment, she pulled out her phone and opened a new note, typing, "What's his angle? He's unlike the others, but I can't let down my guard. Not yet." The words felt like a shield, a way to process the spark she'd felt at Ruby's. She thought of her literacy center, a dream born in the Bed-Stuy library where she'd escaped as a kid, devouring novels while her mother worked double shifts. Ethan's gift made that dream feel closer, but also scared her. What if he expected something in return? As her shift ended, Aisha entered the crisp night, the city's lights twinkling like stars against the skyline. She clutched her bag, the journal's weight a reminder of Ethan's gesture. At the subway station, she hesitated, then pulled it out, opening to the first page. She wrote with a pen from her purse. Tonight felt real, but money changes things. Can I trust him? Can I trust myself? The train rumbled toward Brooklyn, carrying her home, but the question lingered, a quiet challenge to the walls she'd built around her heart. Aisha Thompson's phone buzzed on her nightstand, the screen glowing in the dim light of her Brooklyn apartment. It was Wednesday morning, 3 days after her dinner evening with Ethan Caldwell, and the leather journal he'd sent still sat unopened on her dresser, its presence both a comfort and a challenge. She'd spent her days off helping Lorraine organize her medications and dodging Malik's teasing texts about her billionaire buddy. Now, an unknown number flashed on her screen. She answered cautiously, her voice thick with sleep. "Hello? Aisha, it's Ethan Caldwell." His low, steady tone sent a jolt through her, memories of Ruby's diner flooding back, the warmth of his smile, the weight of the $2,000 envelope. "I hope I'm not overstepping. I got your number from Carla at Lumiere. She said it was okay." Aisha sat up, her heart racing. She should have been annoyed at the breach, but his sincerity disarmed her. "It's fine," she said, tucking a curl behind her ear. "What's up?" "I wanted to thank you again for the other night," Ethan said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "It meant a lot. I was wondering, would you have dinner with me again? No payment, just as friends." The word friends felt inadequate, like a sweater too small for the feelings stirring in her chest. Aisha hesitated, her mother's warning. Men like him live in a different world, clashing with the memory of Ethan's unguarded stories. "I don't know, Ethan," she said, her tone guarded. "Last time was complicated." "I get it," he replied quickly. No expectations, I promise. Just dinner. You pick the place, and I'll keep it low-key. Aisha glanced at the journal, its quill embossing glinting in the morning light. He'd remembered her dream of a literacy center, a detail she'd shared in passing. That kind of attention wasn't transactional. It was personal. Okay, she said finally. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. There's a soul food spot in Harlem. Sylvia's. I'm paying for myself, though. He laughed, a warm sound that eased her tension. Deal. I'll meet you there. The next evening, Aisha stood before her mirror, second-guessing her outfit. A mustard yellow blouse, fitted jeans, and hoop earrings that caught the light. Not too fancy, not too casual. Just her. She grabbed her purse, the journal tucked inside, and headed to Harlem. The subway's rumble, a familiar comfort. Sylvia's restaurant glowed warmth, its red awning a beacon on Lenox Avenue. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of fried catfish and candied yams, Aretha Franklin's voice drifting from the speakers. Aisha arrived early, claiming a corner booth, her nerves buzzing. At precisely 7 o'clock, Ethan walked in, looking surprisingly ordinary in dark jeans and a gray button-down, his ash-blonde hair slightly tousled. No driver, no suit, just him, leaning against a modest SUV parked outside. You drive? Aisha asked, unable to hide her surprise as he slid into the booth. I even tie my shoes, he said with a grin, his green eyes crinkling. Found this place on my own, too. Got lost in Harlem once, smelled the food, and wandered in. Best mistake I ever made. Aisha smiled, relaxing into the familiar rhythm of Sylvia's. They ordered, smothered pork chops for her, chicken and waffles for him, and the conversation flowed like a slow river. She talked about her brief time teaching, how she'd loved watching kids light up over stories before her mother's illness pulled her away. Ethan listened, his gaze steady, then shared his past. I started coding in high school, he said, cutting into his chicken. Built an app with a friend in college. Thought we'd change the world together. He sold it behind my back for a quick buck. Taught me trust is a luxury. Aisha's fork paused. His betrayal echoed her caution, forged by years of fending for herself. That's rough, she said softly. Ever think about giving people another chance? Trying to, he said, his eyes meeting hers. You're making a good case for it. The words hung between them, heavy with possibility. Over cornbread and collards, they swapped lighter stories. Her love for jazz poetry slams, his secret habit of sketching old buildings. Aisha felt the walls she'd built begin to soften, each laugh a crack in her armor. When their hands brushed, reaching for the hot sauce, a spark shot through her, and she pulled back, her cheeks warm. Ethan noticed, but didn't push. His smile was gentle. As the meal ended, they stepped into the Harlem night, the street alive with vendors and music. Aisha led him down Lenox Avenue, pointing out murals painted by local artists, their colors vivid under streetlights. This is my city, she said, her voice proud. Not the glossy Manhattan version, but the real one. Ethan nodded, taking it in. It's beautiful. Reminds me of the sketches I used to do in Ohio, trying to capture places that felt alive. He paused, his expression turning serious. Aisha, I meant what I said about friends, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel something more. No pressure, just, I like this. I like you. Her breath caught, the honesty in his voice unraveling her defenses. She wanted to lean into the moment, to let herself fall. But Malik's warning echoed. Men like that always have an agenda. I had a good time, Ethan, she said, stepping back. But let's take it slow. I've got a lot on my plate. Work, my mom, my dreams. I get it, he said, his hands in his pockets. Slow's good. Can I call you again? She nodded, a small smile breaking through. Yeah. But don't expect me to pick up every time. He laughed, walking her to the subway. As she descended the steps, Aisha glanced back, his silhouette framed by Harlem's glow. She opened the journal in her apartment, her pen hovering over a blank page. He's different, but is he different enough? She wrote. I felt something tonight, something real. But I can't lose myself, not even for him. The words anchored her, a reminder of her strength as she drifted to sleep, the city's heartbeat echoing her own. The late September sun cast a golden glow over the Bed-Stuy Community Center, where Aisha Thompson sat cross-legged on a folding chair, a dog-eared copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God balanced on her knee. The weekly book club buzzed around her, a dozen voices debating Janie's choices with the passion only literature could spark. The center, a brick building wedged between a laundromat and a mural-covered bodega, was Aisha's sanctuary, where her dreams of opening a literacy center felt tangible. She jotted notes in the leather journal Ethan had sent, her pen tracing ideas for storytime programs. But her thoughts kept drifting to their dinner at Sylvia's, the electric brush of his hand, his unguarded confession. Nia, her best friend since college, slid into the chair beside her, her braids adorned with gold beads that clinked softly. You're distracted, girl, Nia said, her eyes narrowing. Spill. Is it that rich guy from the diner? What's his name? Ethan? Aisha sighed, closing her book. Yeah, we had dinner again last night in Harlem. No money this time, just us. She hesitated, the memory of Ethan's laugh warming her. He's different, Nia. Listens like he cares, not like he's waiting for something. Nia leaned back, her expression skeptical. Different how? Is he slumming it in our world, or are you climbing into his? You know how these things go. Folks like him don't stay grounded for long. Her words carried the weight of experience, a nod to the men who'd promised more than they delivered. Aisha bristled, her fingers tightening on the journal. He's not like that. He showed up in jeans, drove himself, and ate chicken and waffles like he meant it. But, she trailed off, thinking of the $2,000 still hidden under her mattress. I'm keeping my eyes open. Good, Nia said, softening. You're too real to get lost in his world. Just make sure he's here for you, not some fantasy. Ethan faced his own scrutiny across town in the glass-walled offices of Sinclair Innovations. His CFO, Margaret, stood before his desk, her silver hair pulled into a sleek bun. Investors are asking questions, Ethan, she said, her voice clipped. They saw you at that Harlem place with the waitress. They're worried you're distracted. A relationship outside your circle could complicate things. Ethan's jaw tightened, his sketchpad of old buildings abandoned on the desk. Her name's Aisha, and she's not a distraction. She's real, Margaret. More real than half the people in this building. He thought of their walk down Lenox Avenue, the murals Aisha had pointed out, their vibrant colors starkly contrasting his sterile world. I'm not changing my life to appease investors. Margaret raised an eyebrow, but nodded. Just be careful. Perception matters in our game. That evening, Aisha and Ethan met at Prospect Park, the air crisp with the promise of fall. Aisha had suggested the park's jazz festival, a free event where Brooklynites gathered under fairy lights strung through oak trees. The stage pulsed with a saxophone's wail, families sprawled on blankets, and food trucks offered jerk chicken and mango smoothies. Aisha wore a denim jacket over a sundress, her curls loose, feeling more herself than she had at Sylvia's. Ethan arrived with a shy smile, carrying a blanket he'd bought at a nearby market, its pattern clashing charmingly with his button-down. "This is incredible," Ethan said, spreading the blanket on the grass. "We didn't have stuff like this in Ohio. Just county fairs and bad cover bands." He grinned, offering her a paper cup of lemonade from a vendor. "You come here a lot?" "Every year," Aisha said, sipping the tart drink. "My mom used to bring me. We'd dance until our feet hurt." She pointed to a group of kids twirling to the music. "That's what I want for my literacy center. Joy like this, but with books." Ethan's eyes lit up. "Tell me more about it. You mentioned it at Ruby's, but I want the full vision." She hesitated, then let the words spill out. "A place for kids to feel safe, discover stories. Picture books, YA novels, and authors from our community. Workshops, story times, maybe even a little cafe with tea and pastries. Somewhere that feels like home." Her voice grew animated, her hands gesturing. "I want kids like I was to know they can dream big, no matter where they start." Ethan listened, his gaze steady, not interrupting. When she finished, he said, "That's beautiful, Aisha. You're going to make it happen. I can feel it." His certainty warmed her, but doubt lingered. She was about to respond when a camera flash caught her eye. A man with a telephoto lens stood nearby, snapping photos of them. Aisha's stomach dropped. "Ethan, that guy's taking pictures," she whispered, her voice tight. Ethan followed her gaze, his expression darkening. "Paparazzi. Damn it." He stood, shielding her with his body. "Let's move." He guided her toward a quieter corner of the park, his hand steady on her elbow. "I'm sorry. This happens sometimes." Aisha's heart raced, Nia's warning echoing. "Is this what it's like with you? Cameras, gossip, people watching every move?" She crossed her arms, the festival's joy dimming. "Sometimes," Ethan admitted, his voice low. "But I'm not my world, Aisha. I'm just me, trying to be with you." He paused, his eyes searching hers. "If this is too much, tell me now. I'll back off." She studied him, the sincerity in his face clashing with the camera's intrusion. Her life was private, rooted in Bed-Stuy's rhythm, not Manhattan's spotlight. But how he looked at her, like she was the only person in the park, made her want to stay. "It's not too much," she said finally. "Not yet. But I need to keep my world, Ethan. This..." She gestured to the festival, the music, the community. "This is me. I wouldn't want you to lose that," he said, his voice earnest. "I want to be part of it, if you'll let me." They sat back on the blanket, the music swelling around them. Aisha let herself lean closer, their shoulders brushing as the saxophone played on. Back in her apartment, she opened her journal, the pages already filling with her thoughts. "He fits here somehow," she wrote. "But his world's creeping in. Can I hold on to mine and still let him in?" The question lingered as she fell asleep, the festival's melody echoing in her dreams. Aisha Thompson darted through Lumiere's bustling dining room, balancing a tray of martinis as the Friday night crowd hummed with laughter and clinking glasses. The chandeliers cast a soft glow, but her focus was fractured, her thoughts split between Ethan Caldwell's earnest words at the Prospect Park Jazz Festival and the $2,000 still hidden under her mattress. Their second dinner at Sylvia's and the festival's vibrant night had left her heart unsteady, caught between caution and a pull she couldn't name. Her phone, tucked in her apron, vibrated insistently, breaking her rhythm. She ignored it, dodging a glare from Carla, the floor manager, until it buzzed again. Excusing herself to the break room, Aisha checked the screen. A voicemail from Mrs. Carter, her mother's neighbor in Queens. "Aisha, honey, Lorraine, Mrs. Carter's voice trembled. She collapsed in her apartment. The ambulance is taking her to Brooklyn Hospital now. Come quick. Aisha's world tilted, the tray nearly slipping from her hands. Her mother's lupus had been stable, but flares were unpredictable, each one a thief stealing pieces of Lorraine's strength. She grabbed her purse, the leather journal from Ethan inside, and rushed to Carla. I need to leave, Aisha said, her voice tight. My mom's in the hospital. Carla's eyes narrowed, but she nodded. Go, but don't expect special treatment tomorrow. Aisha barely heard her, already dialing Ethan as she ran to the subway. Ethan, it's Aisha, she said when he answered, her words shaking. My mom collapsed. I'm heading to Brooklyn Hospital. Can you meet me there? I'm on my way, he said without hesitation, his voice a steady anchor. Hang in there, Aisha. The subway ride was a blur of fluorescent lights and worry, Aisha's fingers clutching her phone like a lifeline. At the hospital, the emergency room's sterile chill hit her like a wave. Nurses bustled past, and the waiting area smelled of antiseptic and anxiety. Aisha was pacing, her sneakers squeaking on the linoleum, when Ethan arrived, his gray coat slightly askew, his ash-blonde hair damp from the autumn drizzle. He was already speaking to a doctor in a hushed tone, his presence commanding yet calm. Aisha, he called, spotting her. His green eyes softened with concern as he crossed the room. Your mom's stable. They're running tests. Dr. Ellis is one of the best. She's handling Lorraine's case. Aisha's knees weakened, relief and fear colliding. How did you... She started, then stopped, noticing the doctor's deferential nod to Ethan. You know people here? I've donated to the hospital, he said, guiding her to a chair. I made a call to ensure she gets top care. He sat beside her, his hand hovering near hers, not touching, but close. What happened? Aisha explained Mrs. Carter's call, her voice small. Her lupus flares come out of nowhere. Last time she was down for weeks. I can't lose her, Ethan. Her eyes stung, but she blinked back tears, refusing to crumble. You won't, he said firmly. She's tough, like you. He hesitated, then added, my mom used to volunteer at a clinic in Ohio. She'd stay up all night with patients, holding their hands, telling them stories to keep their spirits up. She'd want me to be here for you. Aisha looked at him, really looked, seeing not the billionaire from magazine covers, but a man who'd dropped everything to be by her side. His story about his mother, raw and unguarded, mirrored her love for Lorraine. Thank you, she whispered, her fingers brushing his for a moment, before pulling back. Dr. Ellis approached, her clipboard in hand. Ms. Thompson, your mother had a severe lupus flare, likely triggered by stress or a new medication. She's stable now, but she'll need close monitoring and a revised treatment plan. A specialized facility would be best, but that's costly, even with insurance. Aisha's stomach twisted, and the word costly was a dagger. None of her savings, the $2,000 from Ethan, and her Lumiere tips would be enough. I'll figure it out, she said, her voice hollow. Dr. Ellis nodded and left, promising updates. Ethan turned to her, his expression gentle but resolute. Aisha, let me help. I can cover the costs and get her into the best facility. You don't have to do this alone. She shook her head, her pride flaring. I can't, Ethan. I appreciate it, but I've always handled things myself. Taking your money. It feels like I'm proving everyone right, like I'm with you for what you can give me. Her voice cracked, the paparazzi's flash from the festival burning in her memory. This isn't about that, Ethan said, his tone earnest. It's about your mom, about you. I care about you, Aisha. Let me be there, not as a checkbook, but as someone who... He stopped, his jaw tightening, as if afraid to say too much. Aisha's heart pounded, torn between gratitude and fear of dependency. She thought of Nia's warning at the book club. You're too real to get lost in his world, and her mother's strength, knitting through pain. I need to think about it, she said finally, her voice soft but firm. I'll find a way. Loans, extra shifts, something. Ethan nodded, respecting her space. I'm here, whatever you decide. He squeezed her hand, his touch warm, and for the first time, Aisha didn't pull away. They sat in the waiting room, the clock ticking past midnight. Aisha's phone buzzed with a text from Malik. Heard about your mom. You okay? Need me to swing by? She typed back. I'm good. Thanks. Ethan's here. Malik's reply was a skeptical emoji, but it made her smile, grounding her in her world. A nurse called Aisha to Lorraine's room. Her mother lay in a hospital bed, her face pale but her eyes bright. You didn't have to stay, baby, Lorraine said, her voice weak but warm. I'm tougher than I look. Aisha took her hand, and the familiar calluses were comforting. I know, Mom. Just rest. She glanced at Ethan, who stood in the doorway, his presence quiet but steady. Lorraine noticed him, her gaze sharpening. That's your friend from the diner? Yeah, Aisha said, her cheeks warming. He's been helpful. Lorraine nodded, a knowing look in her eyes. Good. You need someone who shows up. She squeezed Aisha's hand, then closed her eyes, drifting to sleep. Back in the waiting room, Aisha and Ethan sat silently, his hand still holding hers. She opened her journal, and the pages were a lifeline to her thoughts. He's here, no questions asked, she wrote. But can I let him in without losing myself? Mom's sick, and I'm scared. Maybe strength isn't doing it alone, but I'm not ready to let go. The hospital's hum faded as she leaned against Ethan's shoulder, the weight of the night easing, if only for a moment. Aisha Thompson sat cross-legged on her Brooklyn apartment's worn couch, her phone screen casting a harsh glow in the dim morning light. It was a rare day off from Lumiere, and she'd planned to visit Lorraine at Brooklyn Hospital, but a text from Nia, her book club friend, stopped her cold. Girl, you need to see this. Call me. Attached was a link to a gossip column, its headline screaming, Billionaire's paid companion, waitress or opportunist. Aisha's heart sank as she clicked, her fingers trembling. The article detailed her first dinner with Ethan Caldwell at Ruby's, exposing the $2,000 payment and spinning it into a sordid tale of ambition. Sources close to Caldwell confirm he paid the Lumiere waitress for her company, it read, a transaction that's blossomed into a lucrative romance. A grainy photo from the Prospect Park Jazz Festival showed them on a blanket, Aisha's smile radiant, Ethan's hand near hers. The comments were worse. Vicious jabs calling her a gold digger, some laced with venom she knew too well. Aisha's breath hitched, the words blurring through tears. She'd guarded her heart and kept Ethan at arm's length, but this felt like a violation, stripping their connection bare for strangers to judge. Her phone rang. Ethan. She left it on voicemail, needing space, but it rang again. Aisha, have you seen it? Ethan's voice was tight and angry when she finally answered. It's garbage. Complete lies. I'm so sorry. It's not lies, she said, her voice shaking. You paid me, Ethan. That part's true. Now everyone thinks I'm... She couldn't know it, the word prostitute burning in her throat. How did they know? I don't know, he said, his frustration palpable. Maybe someone at Lumiere overheard, or the paparazzi dug deeper. I'm calling my lawyer. We'll sue for defamation. This ends now. Aisha closed her eyes, The journal from Ethan on her coffee table, its pages filled with her doubts and hopes. It's out there, Ethan. People believe it. My people, my community. They'll look at me differently. We'll fix this, he promised. Together. Can I come over? Not yet, she said, her voice firm. I need time. She hung up, her chest tight, and texted Nia. Meet me at the community center. Please. The Bed-Stuy Community Center was alive with a weekend poetry workshop. Kids scribbling rhymes on colorful paper. Aisha found Nia by the mural wall, her gold-beaded braids catching the light. I saw the article, Nia said, her arms crossed. It's ugly, Aisha. You okay? No, Aisha admitted, her voice low. It's like they took something private and twisted it. I didn't ask for his money, Nia. It just happened. She sank onto a bench, the chatter of kids a distant hum. He's not what they say. But what if they're right about me? What if I'm fooling myself? Nia sat beside her, her expression softening. You're not a fool. But you've got to protect your name, your heart. This world, she gestured to the center, the community. It's where you belong. Can he handle that? Or is he pulling you into his mess? Aisha thought of Ethan at the hospital, his steady hand in hers, his story about his mother's kindness. He's trying, she said, but this article makes it feel impossible. Her phone buzzed. Malik from Lumiere. Saw the gossip. You good? Carla's been whispering FYI. Aisha's stomach churned. Carla knew about the payment and saw Ethan's request that first night. Had she leaked it? Later that day, Aisha found her mother propped up in bed at Lorraine's hospital room, a crossword puzzle in her lap. Lorraine's eyes, sharp despite her illness, caught Aisha's distress. What's wrong, baby? She asked, setting the puzzle aside. Aisha handed her the phone, but the article was still open. Lorraine read it, her lips tightening. This is cruel, she said, her voice steady. But since when do you care what strangers think? It's not just strangers, Mom, Aisha said, pacing. It's Bed-Stuy, the center, my people. They'll think I'm chasing his money, not him. She sank into a chair, her hands twisting. I like him, Mom. Maybe more than like. But this makes me feel small. Lorraine reached for her hand, her grip surprisingly strong. You love him enough to fight this or let him go? What's your heart saying? Aisha's eyes stung. I don't know yet. She thought of the journal, her dream of a literacy center, and Ethan's belief in her. He's coming by later. We're going to talk. That evening, Aisha met Ethan at a quiet Bed-Stuy cafe, its walls adorned with local art, the air thick with espresso and jazz. Ethan looked tired, his gray sweater softening his usual polish. I've got my team tracking the source, he said, sliding into a booth. We'll issue a statement, together if you want. Tell the truth. One night, one payment. But what's between us is real. Aisha studied him, his sincerity clashing with the article's sting. The truth won't change what people think, she said. They see a waitress and a billionaire. They've already decided who I am. Then let's show them, Ethan urged, leaning forward. We'll write it ourselves. No lawyers, no spin. Just us, saying we're more than their story. He paused, his voice softening. I'm falling for you, Aisha. I don't care what they say. I care what you think. Her heart flipped, Nia's and Lorraine's words echoing. She nodded slowly. Okay. Let's do it. But it's my words too, Ethan. My voice matters. Voice. They drafted a statement at the cafe's scratch table, Aisha's pen steady. We met by chance. One dinner that became something more. Aisha is no one's opportunist. She's a dreamer building a literacy center for her community. Our relationship is real, not a transaction. They posted it on Ethan's social media, tagging local Brooklyn outlets to amplify Aisha's roots. By morning, supportive comments from the community center's regulars drowned out the hate, though some barbs lingered. Aisha opened her journal that night, the cafe's jazz still in her ears. "We fought back, together," she wrote. "But the world's watching, judging. I'm falling for him too, and it scares me. Can my heart outrun their noise?" The city's hum lulled her to sleep, the statement a small victory, but the shadow of scrutiny remained. Aisha Thompson stood before a small storefront in Bed-Stuy, its large windows reflecting the October dusk. The sign above read, "For lease." Inside, she could see bare wooden floors and walls begging for bookshelves. Mrs. Patel, the owner, a wiry woman with a warm smile, unlocked the door. "It's been a tailor's shop for years," she said, her voice tinged with nostalgia. "I want someone with heart to take it, someone who'll love it like I did." Aisha's pulse quickened. This was the perfect spot for her literacy center, a haven for Brooklyn kids to find stories and dreams. She'd spent weeks researching, using Ethan's $2,000 and her savings, and this space felt like fate with its affordable rent. "It's amazing," Aisha said, stepping inside. The alcove in the corner was ideal for story time, and the windows were perfect for colorful displays. I'd fill it with picture books, novels, and local authors. A place where kids feel at home. Mrs. Patel nodded, her eyes bright. "You've got vision, Ms. Thompson. Let's talk terms." Back at her apartment, Aisha opened her leather journal, which Ethan had gifted, and sketched floor plans, her pen flying. She'd quit Lumiere last week, tired of Carla's sneers and the gossip article's lingering sting. The statement she and Ethan had posted had quieted some critics, but whispers followed her at the community center. Nia had texted earlier, "Proud of you for standing up. You still opening that center?" Aisha replied, "Trying. Found a spot today." Her dream felt closer, but Lorraine's health loomed like a storm cloud. At Brooklyn Hospital, Aisha found Lorraine sitting up, her knitting needles clicking over a half-finished scarf. The lupus flare had left her frail, but her spirit was fierce. "You're glowing," Lorraine said, setting her needles down. "What's got you smiling?" "I found a storefront," Aisha said, pulling up photos on her phone. "In Bed-Stuy, it's perfect for the literacy center. I'm meeting Mrs. Patel tomorrow to sign the lease." She hesitated, then added, "Ethan's been supportive, but I'm doing this on my terms." Lorraine's eyes softened. "That's my girl. But don't shut him out completely. Love's about give and take." She paused, coughing softly. "How's he holding up after that article?" "He's angry but fighting it," Aisha said. "We're fighting it. I need this center to be mine, not his money's." Lorraine nodded, her hand squeezing Aisha's. Aisha's phone rang the next morning as she dressed for the meeting. It was Dr. Ellis, her mother's doctor, and her voice was grave. "Lorraine had another flare last night," she said. "She's stable, but the lupus is progressing faster than we hoped. She needs a specialized facility like Harmony Care, with round-the-clock treatment. It's expensive, even with insurance." Aisha's vision of bookshelves dissolved, replaced by cold calculations. Her savings, the $2,000, her new freelance editing gigs, none would stretch far enough. She thanked Dr. Ellis, her voice numb, and sank onto her bed. The journal lay open, her sketches mocking her. She called Ethan, her fingers trembling. "Mom's worse," she said when he answered. "I can't sign the lease. I need to focus on her care." "I'm so sorry, Aisha," Ethan said, his voice steady. Let me help. I can cover the facility costs. No strings. You don't have to choose between your mom and your dream. Aisha's pride flared, the gossip article's opportunist words searing her mind. I can't, Ethan. It's too much like what they said. I'm with you for your money. Her voice cracked. I'm going to the bank to see about a loan. Ethan sighed, frustration creeping in. You're not proving anything by doing this alone. I care about you, about Lorraine. Why is it so hard to accept help? Because I've always stood alone, she snapped, then softened. I'm sorry. I need to do this my way. Okay, he said reluctantly. But I'm here. Let me connect you with a friend who knows small business loans. No money, just advice. Aisha nodded, though he couldn't see. That I can take. They hung up, and she headed to the bank, her heart heavy. The loan officer, a kind woman named Ms. Rivera, approved a partial loan, enough for Lorraine's initial care, but not the literacy center. Aisha thanked her, and the weight of her choice settled in. She met Mrs. Patel that afternoon, and the storefront's windows were now dark. I'm so sorry, Aisha said, her voice thick. My mom's sick. I can't take the lease right now. Mrs. Patel's eyes were kind. Family comes first, dear. The shop will wait. She pressed Aisha's hand, a small comfort. That evening, Aisha met Ethan at Prospect Park, the same spot as the jazz festival, now quiet under bare trees. He wore a navy jacket, his ash-blonde hair catching the streetlight. How'd it go? He asked, his hands in his pockets. Got a loan for Mom's care, Aisha said, sitting on a bench. But the center's on hold. It hurts, Ethan, but she's more important. She looked at him, his green eyes steady. I'm sorry I snapped. I'm just scared. He sat beside her, his voice soft. I get it. I feel helpless, Aisha. I want to be your partner, not your savior. He paused, his breath visible in the cool air. When my mom died, I threw myself into work, thinking I could control something. I don't want you to lose your dream like that. Aisha's chest tightened, his vulnerability mirroring her own. She leaned closer, their shoulders brushing. You're not helpless, she said. You're here. That's enough for now. Her hand found his, and they sat silently, the park's quiet wrapping around them. Back home, Aisha opened her journal, the pages a map of her heart. I let the dream go, but not forever, she wrote. Ethan's trying to be more than his money, and I'm trying to be more than my pride. Mom's fighting, so I will too. The city's hum lulled her to sleep, and the loan papers on her nightstand were a bittersweet promise. January's chill settled over Brooklyn, dusting Aisha Thompson's apartment windows with frost. 3 months had passed since Lorraine's latest lupus flare, and her mother now thrived at Harmony Care, a specialized facility funded by Aisha's bank loan and insurance. The relief was palpable, but Aisha's dream of opening a literacy center had been deferred, the Bed-Stuy storefront lease a painful memory. She sat at her kitchen table, her leather journal open, sketching new plans for Read Together, her vision for a community hub of books and learning. The $2,000 from Ethan Caldwell, still untouched under her mattress, felt like a lifeline she wasn't ready to use. Her phone buzzed with a text from Nia. Book club tonight. You bringing your billionaire? Aisha smiled, typing back, just me. He's got work. Aisha hosted her first literacy workshop at the Bed-Stuy Community Center, a trial run for her dream. Kids sprawled on rugs, scribbling stories, while volunteers passed out juice and cookies. Aisha read aloud from The Snowy Day, her voice warm, the room alive with giggles. Ethan slipped in quietly, his navy coat dusted with snow, and joined a table of kids, charming them with coding game tales. Aisha caught his eye, her heart lifting at his ease in her world. Nia nudged her, whispering, "He's not bad with kids. You sure he's a CEO?" "He's full of surprises," Aisha said, her smile soft. But her mind churned with challenges. Permit delays for a new lease she'd found, marketing hurdles to attract donors, and the loan payments for Lorraine's care. The gossip article's shadow lingered, though their joint statement had quieted most critics. She'd overheard whispers at the center, locals wondering if Ethan's money was behind her plans. After the workshop, Ethan introduced her to Jamal, a local entrepreneur who built a Brooklyn coffee shop chain. "Jamal's a wizard with community outreach," Ethan said, his green eyes bright. "He can help with your center's strategy." Jamal, a wiry man with a quick laugh, handed Aisha his card. "You've got a solid vision," he said. "Let's talk grants and local partnerships. Bed-Stuy needs this." Aisha nodded, gratitude mixing with determination. "I want it to be sustainable, not just a rich guy's pet project," she said, glancing at Ethan, who grinned. "No offense taken," he said. "This is your show. I'm just the connector." Over the next week, Aisha met Jamal at his cafe, its walls lined with local art. He outlined grant applications and community board approvals, but warned, "Permits are a beast. The city's slow, and you'll need a solid marketing plan to draw families." Aisha took furious notes, her journal filling with ideas, story slams, author talks, a kids' book fair. But a call from the city's zoning office halted her momentum. The new storefront's permit was delayed due to a paperwork error, pushing her opening timeline back months. Frustration gnawed at her, but she filed an appeal, Jamal's advice steadying her resolve. At Harmony Care, Lorraine noticed Aisha's tension during a visit. "You're carrying the world, baby," she said, her knitting needles pausing. "What's wrong?" Aisha sighed, showing her the permit rejection letter. "The center's stuck, Mom. I'm doing everything right, but the universe is saying no." She thought of Ethan's offer to help, his earnestness at the hospital. "Ethan wants to fix it, but I need this to be mine." Lorraine's eyes softened. "You're building something real. Let him help in ways that don't steal your thunder. Partnership ain't weakness." She squeezed Aisha's hand, her strength a quiet anchor. That evening, Ethan invited Aisha to his Manhattan penthouse, a sleek space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's twinkling lights. Aisha felt out of place in her hoodie and jeans, but Ethan's warm smile eased her. Over takeout from a Brooklyn taco truck, they reviewed her grant applications. "You're killing this," he said, scanning her budget. "But permits are a pain. My COO knows a guy at the zoning board. Not a bribe, just a nudge to fix the error." Aisha hesitated, her pride prickling. "No shortcuts, Ethan. I'll fight the appeal myself." He nodded, respecting her boundary. "Fair enough. But let me host a fundraiser at Sinclair Innovations. You pitched Read Together to my team. They'll love it, and it's all your voice." She considered the idea to be aligned with her need for independence. "Okay, but I'm running the show. No CEO swagger stealing my spotlight." He laughed, and they sealed the deal with a clink of soda cans. The fundraiser was held at Sinclair's headquarters, its stark lobby softened by string lights. Aisha presented her vision, and her slides showcased kids reading under Bed-Stuy murals. Margaret, Ethan's CFO, approached afterward, her silver bun gleaming. "Impressive, Aisha," she said. "You're building something meaningful." "Ethan's calmer since you came along, more focused. Don't let this place intimidate you." Her approval, hard-won, bolstered Aisha's confidence. But a final hurdle loomed. A bureaucratic snag threatened her grant, requiring a resubmission by week's end. Aisha worked late at Jamal's cafe, her laptop glowing, her journal open. Ethan brought her coffee, sitting quietly as she typed. "You're unstoppable," he said, his voice low. "I'm proud of you." Aisha looked up, her exhaustion fading. "Thanks for being here, not just fixing things." Their hands brushed, and she let his linger, a quiet shift in her heart. In her journal that night, she wrote, "We're building this together, not just the center, but us. I'm scared, but I'm not alone. That's new." The city's winter stars blinked outside, mirroring the hope growing within her. Snowflakes swirled outside Aisha Thompson's Brooklyn apartment, blanketing the streets in a hush of white. It was Christmas Eve, and the city sparkled with holiday lights. But Aisha's heart was a tangle of hope and fear. Lorraine's health had stabilized at Harmony Care, her lupus managed with specialized care funded by Aisha's loan. The Literacy Center, Read Together, was inching forward, with permits cleared thanks to her relentless appeals and Jamal's mentorship. Yet the gossip article's shadow lingered, accusations of opportunism stinging whenever she and Ethan Caldwell stepped out together. Ethan invited her to his penthouse for a quiet holiday tonight, promising no billionaire nonsense, just us. In a red sweater and jeans, Aisha clutched her leather journal, its pages now a chronicle of their journey. She arrived at Ethan's Manhattan penthouse, the elevator opening to a warm glow. Twinkling Christmas lights draped the living room, and a modest fir tree adorned with handmade ornaments stood in the corner. Ethan, in a flannel shirt, his ash-blonde hair slightly mussed, grinned like a kid. "Surprise?" he said, gesturing to the lights. "I thought we'd decorate your place tomorrow, but I couldn't resist setting this up. First Christmas I've cared about in years." Aisha laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing. "How'd you manage this? You bribed the doorman with Nick's tickets?" "Guilty," he admitted, pulling her into a hug. "You're a fan, too. We're set for tomorrow." His arms were warm, and Aisha melted into the embrace, the city's skyline glittering through the windows. They sank onto the couch, a tray of hot chocolate and gingerbread from a Brooklyn bakery between them. The fireplace crackled, casting shadows as Aisha shared her latest victory, a grant approval for Read Together, secured after weeks of revisions. "You're unstoppable," Ethan said, his green eyes pridefully bright. "Those kids are lucky to have you." He paused, his tone softening. "I've been thinking about my mom lately. She loved Christmas, and always made it special with little things, homemade cookies and stories by the fire. I want that with you, Aisha, a life that feels like home." Her heart fluttered, his words echoing her longing. She thought of Lorraine's advice at Harmony Care. Partnership ain't weakness. Aisha had spent years standing alone, but Ethan's presence shifted her perspective. "I want that too," she admitted, her voice quiet. "But I'm still figuring out how to let you in without losing me." He nodded, his hand brushing hers. "I know it's fast, but you've changed me, Aisha. I want to be your partner, in every way." He reached beside the couch, pulling out a small, wrapped box. And spring painted Brooklyn in bursts of green, cherry blossoms dusting the streets as Aisha Thompson stood inside Read Together, her literacy center, on the eve of its grand opening. The Bed-Stuy storefront, once a tailor's shop, now brimmed with life. Shelves lined with picture books and novels, a cozy alcove stuffed with cushions for story time, and large windows showcasing vibrant displays of local authors' works. Aisha adjusted a poster for a kids' poetry slam, and her engagement ring, a simple diamond from Ethan Caldwell, caught the light. The journey to this moment had been grueling. Months of permit battles, grant revisions, and marketing hustles, fueled by her loan, Ethan's fundraiser, and Jamal's mentorship. Lorraine's health, stable at Harmony Care, gave Aisha the courage to push forward. But whispers of their engagement, sparked by a new gossip blog, stirred fresh doubts. The center buzzed with last-minute preparations, volunteers stringing fairy lights and stacking cookies on tables. Nia, her braids adorned with silver beads, hauled a box of donated books, her grin wide. "This place is magic, Aisha," she said, nudging her. "You did this, girl. Even with Mr. CEO's help. It's your heart here." Aisha smiled, her nerves tingling. "Couldn't have done it without you. Or Jamal. Or—" She trailed off, thinking of Ethan, who'd spent hours helping her paint the walls, his flannel sleeves rolled up, laughing as they splattered each other. But the gossip blog's headline, "Billionaire's Fiancé, From Waitress to Charity Case," gnawed at her, echoing the earlier article's sting. Lorraine arrived, walking steadily with a cane, her face glowing with pride. "My baby's dream has come true," she said, hugging Aisha. "I'm reading to the kids tomorrow, so don't you dare let me oversleep." Thanks to Harmony Care's care, her lupus was managed, and her presence grounded Aisha. "Where's Ethan?" Lorraine asked, her eyes knowing. "Picking up supplies," Aisha said, checking her phone. A text from Malik, her former Lumiere co-worker, popped up. "Heard about the opening. Proud of you. Watch out for those gossip vultures." Aisha's stomach twisted. The blog had resurfaced their first paid dinner, questioning her motives. She pushed it aside, focusing on the center's warmth. Ethan entered, carrying a crate of juice boxes, his ash-blonde hair dusted with spring pollen. "Delivery for the kids' corner," he said, his green eyes crinkling as he kissed her cheek. "This place is incredible, Aisha. You're incredible." Volunteers clapped, and Aisha blushed, her heart swelling but heavy with the blog's shadow. As the evening wound down, disaster struck. The power flickered, then died, plunging red together into darkness. Aisha's breath caught, her mind racing to the opening tomorrow. Kids, families, local press, expecting a flawless event. No, she muttered, checking the breaker box. A blown fuse, likely from the old wiring, and no electrician available this late. Ethan grabbed his phone. "I know a guy who can fix this by morning." "No," Aisha interrupted, her voice firm. "I've got this." She called Jamal, who suggested lanterns from the community center. Nia rallied volunteers, and within an hour, the shop glowed with battery-powered lanterns, their soft light turning the crisis into a magical scene. Aisha exhaled, her hands shaking but steady. "We're okay," she told Ethan, her smile defiant. "This is my show." He nodded, pride in his eyes. "You're a force, Aisha Thompson." He pulled her close, and she let herself lean into him, the lanterns casting shadows like stars. The grand opening dawned bright, the storefront packed with Brooklyn locals, kids clutching free books and reporters snapping photos. Lorraine read "The Colors of Us" to a circle of children, her voice warm, her cane propped nearby. Nia led a poetry workshop, while Jamal networked with community leaders, securing a grant for summer programs. Ethan mingled, charming parents with tech anecdotes, but let Aisha shine. Margaret, his CFO, arrived, her silver bun gleaming. "This is remarkable," she told Aisha. "You're building a legacy. Ethan's lucky to have you." Aisha's chest swelled, but a reporter's question cut through. "Ms. Thompson, how do you respond to claims your center's funded by your fiancé's wealth?" The blog's shadow loomed, and whispers rippled through the crowd. Aisha straightened, her voice clear. "Read Together is funded by grants, my savings, and community support. My fiancé believes in me. But this is my dream, my work." The crowd applauded, and Ethan squeezed her hand, his smile unwavering. That night, Aisha and Ethan sat in the alcove, the center quiet. "You handled that like a pro," he said, his arm around her. "I'm sorry the gossip's back." "It's not your fault," Aisha said, her head on his shoulder. "I'm learning to let it go. This," she gestured to the shelves, "is what matters." She opened her journal, writing, "Today, I opened my dream. Gossip can't take that. Ethan's my partner, not my savior. We're building something real." The spring breeze carried hope through the open window, but Aisha knew more challenges awaited. July's warmth enveloped Brooklyn, the Bed-Stuy streets alive with summer energy. Kids on scooters, music spilling from open windows, and barbecue wafting from corner grills. Aisha Thompson stood inside Read Together, her literacy center, arranging wildflowers in mason jars for her evening wedding. The shelves brimmed with books, the alcove glowed with cushions, and a banner read, "Aisha and Ethan, a story begins." Her engagement ring sparkled as she adjusted a garland, her heart full yet fluttering with nerves. The center, thriving since its April opening, hosted daily story times and poetry slams, drawing kids and families from across Brooklyn. But a new gossip blog, hinting at Ethan Caldwell's charity case bride, stirred old fears, threatening to overshadow their day. Lorraine entered, her cane tapping softly, her face radiant despite her lupus. "You're a vision, baby," she said, eyeing Aisha's cream-colored dress, simple yet elegant with lace sleeves. "This place suits a wedding. Your daddy would have been proud, even if he wasn't one for staying." Her voice softened, a rare mention of Aisha's father, who'd left when she was 3. "Tell me about him, Mom," Aisha said, sitting beside her. Lorraine shared a memory of their whirlwind romance, his dreams of travel clashing with her need for roots. "We were too different," she said, squeezing Aisha's hand. "But you and Ethan, you're building something together." Aisha nodded, her throat tight. "He's my partner, Mom. Not just a savior." Lorraine's story grounded her, a reminder that love required courage, not perfection. Nia burst in, her silver-beaded braids swinging, carrying a tray of cupcakes from a local bakery. "These are for the kids," she said, grinning. "You nervous about marrying Mr. CEO in front of Bed-Stuy?" Aisha laughed, but Nia's question echoed the gossip blog's sting. "A little," she admitted. "People still talk, Nia. They think I'm here for his money." "Let 'em talk," Nia said, setting the tray down. "You built this center with hustle, grants, loans, and heart. Ethan's just the guy lucky enough to stand beside you." Her words bolstered Aisha, echoing the community's support since the opening. Ethan faced pressure from Sinclair Innovations. Margaret, his CFO, had pulled him aside that morning, her tone sharp. "The board's uneasy, Ethan. They call this wedding a PR risk. Too much media attention after that blog." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm marrying Aisha because I love her, not for PR. They can deal." He'd organized a community barbecue the previous week, inviting his colleagues to Bed-Stuy to meet Aisha's world. Kids dancing, Jamal grilling, locals sharing stories. The event had softened some skeptics, but the blog's whispers lingered. At Read Together, the evening sun cast a golden glow as guests arrived. Community center regulars, Lorraine, Jamal, Malik, and a few of Ethan's colleagues, including Margaret. The ceremony was simple. The alcove was transformed with candles and artfully stacked books. A local jazz trio played, their saxophone weaving through the air. Aisha walked down the aisle, her arm in Lorraine's, her eyes locked on Ethan. He stood in a tailored navy suit, his ash-blonde hair catching the light, his smile radiant. "You're beautiful," he whispered as she reached him. his green eyes glistening. Their vows were heartfelt, Aisha's voice steady. Ethan, you saw me when I felt invisible. You've been my partner, not my savior. And I promise to build our life together, page by page. Ethan's voice trembled with emotion. Aisha, you showed me love is real, not a transaction. I vow to always stand beside you, in your world and ours. The crowd cheered, kids tossing flower petals as they kissed, sealing their new beginning. The reception spilled onto the sidewalk, tables laden with soul food from Sylvia's and cupcakes from Nia's tray. Lorraine danced with Jamal, her cane forgotten, while Malik teased Aisha about her fancy CEO husband. Margaret approached, her smile genuine. You two are the real deal, she said. The board will come around. Keep shining, Aisha. Her approval eased Aisha's lingering fears. As the jazz trio played on, Aisha and Ethan danced, her head against his chest. Happy? He asked, his voice soft. More than I thought possible, she said, her ring glinting. She thought of their journey. One paid dinner at Ruby's, hospital nights, gossip storms, and the center's opening. Opening her journal later, she wrote, We built a home, not just a center. Love's messy, but it's ours. The world can talk, but we're writing our own story. The summer night hummed outside, read together, a beacon of their shared dreams, as Aisha embraced a future brighter than she'd ever imagined. The end.